All right, good evening, all. My name is Arlene J. Ramsey. As you know, the name of my podcast is called Everyone Let's Talk. Right before me, Dr. Bell was on giving us that great information about nutritional health and gut health, what we should be eating, why we should be eating it, what it does to our body, and all of that great stuff. As you know, that this Grown Folks Talking podcast is a podcast of it's a conglomerate, a great conglomerate of individuals who talk all things health from different perspectives, whether it's mental wellness, emotional wellness, physical eating, your health, fitness, and so on. Today's conversation, we're going to get into Nolan Wells and what 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 things are looking like thus far. First, I would like to say I am thankful that Benjamin Crump is on this matter. Thank God, and thankful that they have also paid for an additional private autopsy of Nolan Wells' body. For those of you who know, um, he was missing. They were searching for him, and his body was found a few days after the 4th of July, which means that decomposition has already started. Therefore, from the autopsy, they are it's undetermined as to how he passed away. However, there were two organs or so that was missing from his body, right? The throat, an organ in the throat, and I forgot where the other organ was, right? So this is something that we're honing in on a bit. If an animal bit through him and bit the organ, it would not be a clean, extraction of an organ, right? There would be pieces of the organ still in his body, and an investigator would be able to determine that an animal has actually ate parts of him. That's not coming out in the autopsy, right? So to say that those two organs are missing, this is a clean cut. And this also means that those organs were extracted from his body prior to them putting him in the water. Okay? There's a lot going on in regards to where his phone was and the father threatening to call authorities before they gave him the keys to his son's truck. Text messages that were deleted from Nolan's cell phone for the day. And when I say for the day, the way Nancy Grace recalls it is messages that Nolan Wells had going on during that whole day. Text messages are missing. Now, as you know, when people to overthink to cover up their actions, right? And I'm saying this because there was no need to delete messages for the entire day of the 4th of July. He was not with them for the entire day, right? He texted other people throughout the day, but they deleted text messages from the entire day. That is extremely suspicious. There were no, they didn't delete text messages that from the window of when he was hanging out with them, like right before he hung out with them, letting them know where he's at, I'm on my way, all of those things. They didn't delete those text messages. They deleted everything. That's suspicious. Then to hold on to his phone, then to not call authorities to let authorities know that something's going on with Nolan and we don't know where he's at. Yet they say that Nolan was their friend. You know, this is another situation that's disheartening, and we have to do more than pay attention to what's happening, protest, cry, grieve about what's happening. But I'm going to say this: the pattern in which they're doing things to indigenous people is usually people that are promising. And what I mean by promising is, and I don't, please don't take this the wrong way. Everybody's promising. That's first and foremost. Everybody can start today, change their mind today, and decide that they want better for themselves today, and go on ahead and do better for themselves today, right? So now that I got that out of the way, because I don't want anyone to feel slighted or uncomfortable by me saying that they do things to promising people. But the reality is this: Nolan Wells was a good kid. This was another good kid. This was another kid that, if you were judging by how he's living, his grades, what he's doing, he's a football player. You knew he was headed to college. Judging by his character and his actions, the history of who he is thus far, it's easy to assume that Nolan Wells would have went on to be a pretty decent young man in our community. He would have went on to, get married, have children, and have a great career, or even start a business, those sorts of things. And it's important that I mention that, because that is the very thing that they do not want to see happening in our communities, in indigenous communities, right? If you look at the people that they have taken away from us thus far, by majority, it is usually the people who are either the activists or the people who have decent careers, live decent lives. They're law-abiding citizens. So these are people that actually do well for their community, right? And these are the people that they're taking from us. Not that they shouldn't take anyone from us, right? But what I'm saying is, it is a strategy of the oppressor and the opposition to take people who is assumed to do right by their community out of the community. Because the goal is to see indigenous people struggling and in plight. Another thing we have to understand is power is not given. It is rarely assumed. You have to take it. Power has to be taken. And the only way you're going to take power is if you continue to position yourself well to where you can eventually take it. And that means that you're going on to continue to position yourself and do the right things in this world, get great careers, make good money, invest, be around people that know more than you. That is the only way that you're going to amass enough information to learn how to strategize and position yourself well to take power, right? So they're paying attention to the movements of indigenous people. Therefore, it is their goal to ensure that we don't thrive. And when they take our young, great black men from us, that sets us back as a community. It sets us back, okay? And so they know what they're doing. The other thing is this, and I've said this before and I'll say it again and I'll continue to say this, right? This is also spiritual warfare. When they do this, they continue to harvest our energy, right? And I know some people think, okay, that's devil talk. It's not devil talk. Trust me, it is not devil talk. If if there wasn't anything to gain spiritually as well by doing these things to the indigenous people, they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it. What we got to understand is, only a fool is going to do something just to do something and have nothing to gain from it. Anytime something is being done, somebody is profiting or gaining some way, shape, or form. Some way, shape, or form, right? And so when they do these things to our people, they are also consuming our joy, consuming our strength, our essence. When we're sad, that makes them happy, that makes them feel good, right? When we're happy and thriving and minding our business and they don't like it, just pay attention to your own self, your personal life. Have you ever experienced, uh, being in relation to someone who's antagonistic, right? And when they are antagonizing and provoking you, the angrier you get, the happier they get. We've all experienced this at some way, shape, or form in our lives, right? The more an antagonistic person provoke you, the angrier you get, the happier they get. Have you ever paid attention to them when you gray rock them? And what gray rocking means is nothing they do bothers you. Because now, if you've mastered yourself and you don't react to antagonistic provocation and you're in your peace, have you ever paid attention to their energy? They're not happy when they see you happy and at peace, minding your business and doing the things that make you happy. They are not happy. And that is the same thing when it comes to the Caucasian brothers and sisters and us indigenous people. When we're happy, at peace, thriving, and living our best lives, they are not happy. They are not happy. Because whatever problems, what we got to understand is everybody has problems in this world, right? Although it seems like they got it easy because they took this country from us, nobody is void of problems, right? The same narcissism and personality disorders we have in our community, they have worse in their community that they have to put up with and deal with in their community. And so there's no way for them to offload their sorrow and frustration. But when black people continues to be the mark, to be the perpetual prey and perpetual victim for these people, they're always going to do things to us as a people to ensure that they harvest our energy and they transfer their sorrow, their frustrations onto us. So in the moment, while we're at sorrow and we're frustrated of what has happened to Nolan Wells, they are happy. Did any of you see the gentleman that called himself Nolan's friend? He didn't look sad on that interview yesterday, did he? He didn't look sad, right? He's talking as if this was just a football game and you're recalling events, chain of events from a football game. Meanwhile, Nolan lost his life, right? These people are sadistic and they're looking for people to be prey. And so it is an unspoken rule that indigenous people will be perpetual victims and prey for them. So every so often they're going to find an opportunity to murder one of us. That's what we have to have in our head. And I know that we have that in our head, right? I know we have that in our head. But we are still not moving the way we should move to keep ourselves protected. And I'm saying this to say, it is okay to not hang out with all your white friends where you are the only black person. Now listen, I might sound like a hypocrite, okay, because I have Caucasian friends. I'm going to be 50 years old in December. And back in my days, in my late teens, early 20s, when I just started driving and such, I would go hang out with Tara and them down in Barnegat, New Jersey. They're from up here, from Bayonne. Got married, moved down to Barnegat in South Jersey. Over an hour to get there. And I would be the only black person hanging out with all of them. Right? And I'm usually going over Tara's house, help out for the weekend with the hot dog truck or whatever. if it's a festival, hang out. We're at the swimming pool. I've never had any issues. These are Irish people, so they're of Irish background, right? So I know I sound like a hypocrite, but I'm going to say this. I did not get any inkling of racism or hatred, right? You had one person, one family member who was, she was, yeah, but she wasn't always, she always didn't hang around, and the family knew that she was a pain in the behind, right? So the family of themselves did not support her as a person with her attitude, right? So I say that to say that I knew that I was safe anytime I went down there and hung with them, and I was the only black young woman hanging around them. But the other thing I didn't do, I made sure I wasn't trying to kick it to no dude or anything like that, because I don't know who's messing with who. These are the sorts of things that will cause people to act like animals, right? When you know you're attractive, people want to talk to you and you want to engage, and you just don't know who lives in those areas, who's attracted to these people and feel like they're upset that the white person now likes a black person. And now in their mind, you shouldn't be liked because they see you as less of a human being than them, right? Um, in this day and age, it is okay for our progressive people or our people, period. I'm going to say progressive people because listen, our brothers and sisters that's from the hood that don't leave the hood, is you're never going to see them hanging out with a bunch of white people and it's just one black person with all white people. You're never going to see it. They're never going to do it. So this is for the progressive people, those of us who've been to college, those of us who have had those careers, those of us who work around them, who have made friends and associates with them, have children, our children hang out with them. This is for the progressive black person. It is okay for us to not go and hang out with them. We don't have to hang, especially if we're the only black person there. Remember the sister, I forgot her name. This happened way before COVID, right? Her son played football. All of these mothers, they were football moms, and they had a sleepover. And this woman, this sister, she was married. Her and her, a beautiful couple. Her and her husband were an attractive couple, right? She hung out with all these white women. The one woman's husband was there. I think he was an officer or FBI or something like that. But she ended up dead. And to this day, nobody was caught or is suffering the consequences of her death. It's been what, 10 years now? But she was the only black woman hanging around them. Again, and I understand the benchmark of saying or thinking that you're not progressive unless you learn how to interact and be cordial with other races, nationalities, and creeds of people. I understand that as well, right? I understand that as well, and I understand the value of not being closed-minded to other cultures of people, especially if you plan to do big things in this world. We cannot be closed-minded and expect to get that regional manager position or the high six-figure, seven-figure position. We can't expect to do that if we're not open or have cultural humility, right? So I understand the value of that. However, I think that we're not having serious enough conversations on how we should be moving and strategizing as a people. Like, we can learn all of these things, have cultural competency, aim to get that high six-figure, seven-figure position, and still not be the only black person off on a secluded location surrounded by all people of other races. It's okay to not do that. It is also okay to find out where they're going to hang out. If it's someplace that we've never been, and they say, oh, we're going to hang out at so and so, and you've never been there, it's okay to say, okay, take note of the location, and then you go with your family and your friends within your community to that location so that you can experience it with people who would have your best interest in heart. A couple of weeks ago, this was before the Nolan Wells situation. I'm not sure if you guys saw this. There was another brother, young black boy, who went and hung out with his white friends. He was the only black boy. And they went to some secluded lake or so, and someone's recording the white guys heckling him. Oh, why don't you just get in? And he's saying, I can't swim. This fella seemed like he's about 14 to 16 years old. He keeps saying he can't swim, and they kept antagonizing him to get into the water. But the way their voice and their tone sound, it sounded like they were building themselves up to build up enough rage to become violent, to do something to him. However, he was saved by another Caucasian family, a husband and wife. They were on paddle boats, separate paddle boats. The wife was on one with her daughter, the little girl. The husband was on another paddle boat with the little son. And they heard the commotion. They were recording everything, just recording their family outing. And they paddled themselves over to the black boy and allowed him to get on their paddle boat, and that's how he got saved. But if that white family did not happen to be there, I'm quite sure that young man, he probably would have been another Nolan Wells or another young, promising black kid that something happened to, right? And if you notice, this is happening to our young black boys. Why is this happening to our young black boys? I don't know. I think we need to have further conversation. Why aren't young black girls hanging out with only, all white girls, cliques with them being the only black girl around white girls? Maybe with black girls, because girls are very vindictive and evil towards one another. So I'm quite sure that could be a reason why we don't see more stories of young black girls hanging out with white girls and things happening to black girls. But with boys don't do things in that kind of way, right? So you may not realize that you're hanging around with someone who actually envies you until a girl that they like happens to like you. And then it's just like a animalistic switch that clicks on. And because you're not a part of their culture, you may not realize when that switch clicked on. But all of them around you is already on killer mode. What we also got to remember is, when it comes to culture, even in us, indigenous people, we still have different cultures. Like the culture up here in New Jersey is not the same as that in Maryland. It's not the same as that in North Carolina, South Carolina, Louisiana. Hell, you can be in Newark, New Jersey, and live. One black family could live in the North Ward, and another could live over in the South Ward. And there's two different cultures in those two different households. But we're still indigenous. We're still black people, right? So what we got to realize with culture is, when it comes to survival, when it comes to the things that make people tick, these types of things you're not going to know unless you actually live in households with people, right? So we got to tread lightly. It's okay for us to not put ourselves in positions to be on a chopping block, right? And as I said again, progress doesn't require you to put yourself in dangerous situations. We can find other ways to be progressive. Does anybody have questions so far? Or statements? Okay, I'll keep going. But yes, we can find other ways to be progressive. and ensure our safety. For years, for centuries, it's almost like depression and certain aspects of mental illness has now taken over the DNA of our people, right? Because what we got to understand is that once you've been saturated with trauma, that rewires the brain and it also rewires the DNA. Then when we have the children are being birthed with our changed DNA. And then when they experience certain things, their DNA is what it is, right? So what we need to look at is that our DNA is not pure of trauma. It is not pure of trauma, but that's not who we were before the colonizers came here and took over this country, right? So when we think about wellness and being healthy, it's imperative, as I always say, for us to think about mental wellness, emotional well-being, our nervous system, ensuring that we regulate our nervous system, our fight, flight, freeze, and fawn system. And we cannot do it if we're continuing to see stories like this. Because, see, although Nolan Wells is in Mississippi, although I don't have any children, when I heard that news, I felt like that he was my son. I felt like his mother was my sister. So, of course, I don't feel her pain the way she does because I don't know them. But the link is that we're indigenous people. So when we see something happen to one, it's a wave. We're all going to feel it. And it doesn't matter what state you're in, what state it happened and what state you're in. We're all feeling that wave. And just like we're all feeling the wave of depression and grief and sorrow for this situation, the Caucasians are all feeling the wave of joy, of happiness, of siphoning our joy and of our energy. They're feeling that wave as well. So that goes back to what I was saying earlier, because they can't get rid of their problems either. They have to find ways to give themselves joy. By keeping the indigenous people as perpetual prey and as perpetual victims, that will ensure that every so often they're going to hear news that's going to make them happy. And why that also makes them happy is when you take promising black boys out of the community, they, like I said earlier, that sets us back. What does it look like for the young black woman and her choices of a husband when she becomes of age, when our young black boys are being murdered at early ages? What does it look like? What we also don't understand is, or maybe we forget, they wouldn't mind taking over the black race. You get rid of the black men, now what does that leave the black woman to? What does that leave for the black woman? Right? I don't know if you all know, but out of those group of boys that called themselves Nolan Wells friends, one of the boys' mother is a judge. Another one of the boys' father, I believe it is FBI, and someone else parent is in with forensics. So these are people that have parents in high places, and with these type of positions that the parents have, a judge, a FBI, forensic, they think that they're not going to go to jail. They're not going to get discovered, right? So it's imperative to also know that these positions, as some people's parents and family members have, although it seems prestigious, it is also a gateway to where they can get away with murder. We should be looking at things in that way as well, right? At least that's how I look at things. And no, I'm not paranoid. I've had people say, Arlene, I think you're a little too much. You think about things a bit too deeply, and no, I don't. Certain positions give you certain levels of freedom. certain levels of liberty, certain levels of power, right? Now, most people abuse power. So having a position puts certain people in the mind frame that they can do certain things and get away with it, right? So I understand for Nolan Wells, it was prestigious that he was a part of the club, or he thought he was a part of the club, right? Whereas it seems like everybody can't get into the club. We all know that. You're going to have some people on the outside that wish that they could be a part of the friend group, that can't be part of the friend group. I think we put way too much value on things like that, because that is what's getting our young people in trouble. It's getting our young people in trouble. They're losing their lives. And we're remaining a grieving people. They don't have the empathy or the compassion or the care to say to themselves, listen, the black community is still grieving from, what's his name, Carmelo Anthony, right? Or maybe this. You had the Austin twin that was murdered, and they're thinking in their mind, we're going to take somebody else out. Isn't that, don't you find it? I mean, Nolan Wells is a football player, and Austin Metcalf that was murdered by Carmelo Anthony is a football player. In their mind, you take one of us, we taking one of yours. They have a mentality that they're always going to be superior. And we're not going to be allowed to be superior or even on the same level as them. That's how delusional they are, right? But we cannot say that they're delusional and continue to put ourselves in situations that make them seem like they're right. And I say this to say, you got to get on cue. This situation with Carmelo Anthony is not over. Don't put yourself in certain situations. It's real easy for us to say, oh, that has nothing to do with me. We're over here in the state of Mississippi. That happened in Texas, and I'm not Carmelo Anthony. It doesn't matter. You're a part of the indigenous community. And that's where we're failing as a people. We're failing because we don't have good strategy. I say this all the time. We're not strategizing. We're losing horribly. And in their mind, they think that we're easy to take out, and we're stupid. And we continue to prove that. Like, what is it that we're going to do to shift how we're thinking about ourselves, about how we're moving in this world, and about the white person, the oppressor? Any questions or statements? Or have any of you even heard about the Nolan Wells story?
It's Arlene.
Yes.
Very informative so far. I believe that you had spoke about this. I believe you had spoke about this maybe about a week or 2 weeks prior, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I spoke. That was Carmelo Anthony. So this one, okay.
No, not Carmelo. I don't want to mistake that one. But did you touch it? Did you touch this topic before?
Well, Nolan Wells, maybe I did, but I did not have a full show because this just happened 4th of July. When Nolan Wells came up missing 4th of July, and his body was found a couple days after.
Yes. I heard this on somebody else's show. That's what it was.
Yeah, this is my first time talking about it. But,
okay, I heard it on somebody else's show. That's what it was. It was still on Growthful because it was on somebody else's show.
Okay. And what did you think about their analysis?
I think this is what was said. the fact that this young man just went missing, and the fact that his friends didn't know what happened, it didn't sound right to me. It just didn't sound right. He got murdered. He got murdered.
Right.
He totally got murdered.
Right.
Because his items went missing, his phone, everything, all his possessions just disappeared.
Right.
This young man got murdered.
Right. Right. And it's like, how do all of your items go missing? Right? And then when his father went to get the truck, they wouldn't give the father the keys to his truck. That's how disrespectful they are. It wasn't until the father threatened to call the authorities that they gave the father the keys to his son's truck. And then the mother, who's the judge, one of this boy's judge, who's a judge, she's I forgot what was her statement, but it went along the lines of to look elsewhere. In other words, my son didn't have anything to do with it, so please don't look at my family or question my family. Well, who does she think she is to say, look elsewhere? That's what I mean by they don't have the ability to have empathy and compassion for us indigenous people. And it's also what I mean by they are harvesting our energy. So their mind is made up that they're going to say whatever, because what's the saying? Who's going to check me, boo? Who's going to check them, right? In their mind, we have no power. So how are you going to check me? Look elsewhere, right? That was audacity to say something like that, knowing that this young man lost his life. Yeah. But I have to say again, this is why I say again, with our strategy, this situation with Austin Metcalf is still fresh. We should not put ourselves in situations where we're the only black person around a group of white people. And it doesn't matter if they're good friends of ours or good associates. We need to be on the same accord, because you just don't know who will want to retaliate. And the thing about people is you cannot control what someone is thinking. What someone is thinking and planning, you can't control or stop that, right? So when they saw that Austin Metcalf lost his life, we don't know what they thought about that. So there's no, again, when the guy that was on, the interview, who was the so-called friend, he doesn't look like he's grieving or that he's sad that Nolan Wells is not here. Mm-hmm. Right? So this is why I say that we got to move different, right? We got to do different. We understand who the oppressor are. We already understand how they think, the racism. I like I say again, for me, I tell people, it's also good to study psychology and study antisocial personality disorders. And you'll see that a lot of these people have antisocial personality disorders, which is why they think that they're superior to black people, and they have no empathy for the cruelty and the murder and carnage and pillage that they cause. And they think that they should get away with it. When we start getting on one accord, when we start saying it doesn't matter if this situation happened down in New Orleans, but we all need to be on cue. Keep your head on the swivel. Ensure that we're moving right, because you don't know who wants to retaliate. And it doesn't have to, the retaliation don't have to come from the state the situation happened in. It doesn't have to come from that state. It could come from another state, because the difference between them and I like to say with us is they think on one accord. Right? They're not all the same white people. And what I mean by that is you have some of them are Polish, some of them are Czechoslovakian, Italian, Irish, Yugoslavian, French. They're from all over, German, Russian, but they're on the same accord, as in something happened to one of us, pink people, we're going to make sure one of them pay. And it doesn't matter what state it happened is in. It's tit for tat forever because in their mind, they're always needing to be on top. So they're going to create a situation where we still have to take another loss. We got to start thinking like that. Move different. If that's what they're planning and that's what they want to do, you got to make it hard for them to do that or accomplish what they're trying to accomplish. Don't make it easy for them. Make it easy on ourselves, not them.
Amen.
Anybody else have anything to say? A question?
Yes, I would like to say something.
Okay.
My name is Tommy, and I've been on since 7:25.
Okay.
And I wanted to thank you for the message that you're bringing, and I'm 100% in agreement with each and everything you said. And I would like to add a little bit of something. As a person, since I was 16 years of age, I have been in the presence of white people from high school on through my career in television. I have been in environments, in professional environment, where many times I was the only black person. And even though I was in a protected environment where no harm was going to come to me physically, the mental harm that I had to deal with, coming there day after day after day after day, and none of my own people to relate to. And then eventually there was one black person, then a second black person, and then a dozen black persons. But still, in most of the areas where I worked, I was in the leadership role, but still, there were very few black people. But I can expand upon that to say, even in the outside, I think it's very good advice that you're giving. Don't be out there by yourself amongst them. I don't care how many classes you go with them, how many sleepovers you have with them, because what I have seen, and they can seem to be so nice to you, but they have a mob mentality. They have a herd mentality. Their leadership has directed their minds deliberately in a certain pathway so that they can use, you remember how they divided when white people and black people back in the 1800s were starting to become united, I guess during the period of Reconstruction. Yeah, you remember how they divided? They have kept that division in place. So the people who are, they're elitists that want to maintain this system of so-called racial superiority, which is really racial inferiority, because they know that if they don't abuse and destroy what we build, that we will surpass them, and they're not going to let that happen. So they use their own underlings, like infantry soldiers. Anything that infantry is told to do, that herd mentality, they tell them to attack the capital, they'll attack the capital. If you tell them to go and burn down the town in Florida, burn down the towns in Oklahoma, they'll do it because they have a mob mentality. And essentially, my last line, essentially they are welfare recipients. See, they used to being taken care of by this country. This government is a welfare system for white people. And so the majority white population is dumbed down. They're dumbed down, and they'll do anything their leadership tells them to do. And so they look, like you said, they look for opportunities to destroy us at every level. Thank you.
Right. Right. And they're like you said, the mob mentality. It reminds me of the baboons. Right. You can, the baboon. I mean, I don't know if you guys watch nature. See, I watch nature.
Me
right?
too.
Because we can't see ourselves because there's no cameras watching you, there's no reality TV about your life, so you can't see yourself. But when I watch nature, I can see some animals that I identify with, or some people who act like certain animals, like hyenas, right? With them, they have, it's like baboons, right? So baboons, they can be in the tree, chilling and all of that, and One thing happened, and it's like a snap of a finger, and they all will rage on you. They're unpredictable. You can predict that if something happened on that one don't like, the rest is going to mob. What's unpredictable is you don't know what that thing may be. But when they mob on you, that's it for you, right? You're done. So those are other things like this is why I say it's good to identify how they are, but we have to do more than that. We have to do more than just saying that they're racist, just saying that they're racially inferior. All right, I got a question. Do you guys let me not even a question. I'll say this. This is something that I've observed of them and observed of ourselves. Do you know with our people, indigenous people, we have a low tolerance for pain. I don't know if you all know that. We have a low tolerance for pain. Our skin don't bruise as easy, but we have a low tolerance for pain. White people, they cut and bruise easy, but they got a high tolerance for pain. Some things that they do, break feet, break hand, flip hair, some of the things that they do, and you don't see them screaming in agony with pain. You know good and well that if it was a black person that has experienced that same injury, it's bloody murder for us. We do not have a high tolerance for pain, but our skin don't bruise as easy as they do. Like, we really need to be dissecting these people, and we also should stop. Don't underestimate them. I think we underestimate them, and that's another issue that we end up in with these, where we are in these problems with them, and by the time the problem arises, it's hard to get out of, because again, it's like a baboon mentality that when one snap, the rest is going to rage on you, and then and they want to see it happen, right? The other thing is this: although they bruise easy, although they may shatter bones easy, not all of them are have soft bones. And many of them are very tactical in how they fight. They learn how to fight. They're learning how to shoot. So when we end up in these situations with them, it can be off-putting to realize some of the things that they do, because they're teaching their children how to take somebody's life with your bare hands, how to physically harm them, to disarm them. And we may not be teaching our children those things. We're not teaching them how to fight in combat unless they go in the military. With these people, they don't have to send their children to the military. They're learning how to do things in combat. They're learning to put people in bear hugs. They're learning to choke people out. They're learning mixed martial art movements to have you on the ground and clip you on the ground and they're not even in mixed martial. I've seen these things with my own eyes. So I'm saying this to say that some of our children are not equipped to be in situations or in fights with them either. I always say that underestimation is an element of surprise. And they don't underestimate us, though. We underestimate them, they don't underestimate us. And that's our problem. We're going to have to shape up. We need to. This is 2026. We can't keep doing this. We cannot. We're not a perpetual victim. We're not perpetual prey for these people. Anybody else have any questions or anything to say?
I'd like to make one quick statement. I agree with what you just said, but we got to do better in the way we train our children. I think for so long in our communities, too many people, black people, got on my nerves and hurt my heart, talking about, well, not all white people are bad. You can't put all of them in one basket. I said, listen, don't worry about white people. White people will be fine. Worry about your own people.
Right.
Stop talking about we're all God's children. And what does that have to do with somebody stabbing you?
Right.
The person stabbing you is God's child. The person who's raping your people and murdering your people.
Right.
Like you just said, we got to teach our children the proper way. And I think that's what we do. We get so caught up in, we're marrying with them, we're having children with them, we got grandchildren with them. That doesn't change the big picture. You got to look at what their objective is. Where do they want to be 100 years from now as white people? Where do they want to be? Thank you.
That is absolutely correct. And I thank you for that. Absolutely correct. And like I said again, we need to be teaching our children how to be tactical, right? Because they are tactical, right? And we shouldn't look at, just like they put all black people in a box, we shouldn't put all of them in a box, as in to say, if you see a few videos where, it looks like they don't know how to fight, that's in comparison, that's the minority, right? And another thing we do is we major in the minor and we minor in the majors, right? And so in that make us losers in comparison to other people that's been studying us, right? And so in that, we're not positioning ourselves to protect our creativity, protect our energy, protect our lives, protect our growth. What are we protecting, right? And then we put too much energy on the black people that we think are not doing enough for us. Well, that same black person can't do it all. They're doing the things that they can do. We need more of us to step up and be in positions to do what others are not doing. Because what we're not understanding is, with them as a people, they act as a whole. They're attacking us from every angle. It's housing, it's education, it's food insecurity, it's jobs. One white person or one white family is not handling it all. It's different people from their sector that's ensuring that we stay at the bottom in every structure or level of life that would give you a good life. Anything that is concerning having a good life or living well, there is somebody ensuring that indigenous people don't even make it to midway. But we complain about the one black person that's not doing what we want them to do, instead of seeing all the things that they are doing and understanding that more of us need to be positioning ourselves to step up and do in other places to make sure we got us, right? And we need to drop the fear of, well, the white man is not going to let us do this, and the white man is going to... No, we cannot have a damned if you do and damned if you don't mentality. Because if we're doing that, like I say again, then we might as well just give up on life. Give up on life if that's what you're doing. And then my thing is this: then why is God here? Did God put us here to be perpetual victims and perpetual prey to people that we say are the recessive, that have the recessive gene? No. Something is not adding up, right? And what's not adding up is our lack of strategy and positioning.
That's right.
Anybody else have any questions or statements?
You're right on point. And I thank you for your input as well.
And you're welcome. You're welcome. May Nolan Wells rest in peace. He was a good-looking brother as well. Another attractive young man. Had good height. I don't know what his grade point average is, but played football. I just looking at his pictures, you knew that he was going to be a productive citizen. You knew that he was going to eventually, get married, have that career, have those children, buy that house, People were looking at his parents and they said that, his parents had so much resemblance to Emmett Till's parents. They put their pictures right under each other. We have to shift the paradigm. We gotta strategize. I can't even say change our strategy because we don't have a strategy as a people. We gotta start strategizing. We're just out here. The goal is to become successful. That's what a lot of us are focusing on, become successful. But we have lost the survival skills. You cannot lose our survival skills. White people are sending their children to like boot camp. They understand the value of having life skills, that they will pay money that they have because they make great money. They pay money to send their children away to boot camps for the summer so that they learn life skills and survival skills. They learn how to fight. They learn how to make fires, build camps, survive in the wilderness. They have all these skill sets, all these valuable skill sets they have. We need to be doing the same. What we do in our community is disrespect the people that actually have the skill sets outside of just working a regular job. We don't understand how backwards that is. We disrespect the people that have the different wherewithal and different skill sets, instead of understanding that this is survival skill sets and we need to learn these things. And I just hope and pray that we finally get it together and understand that the fight is not with your next brother and sister. And it does us no good to envy the brother and sister who may know more than us. It makes better sense to be inspired and understand that it's best to acquire great survival skills, great tactical skills. You can't lose knowing tactical skills and survival skills. We can't lose. And the good thing about that is, once you learn tactical skills and survival skills, you also look at people different. You see them different. So you're not going to put yourself in certain situations. You're going to stop putting yourself in certain situations. You will understand the value of who we are, the value of your position in this world, and you'll protect that. It is now 8:15. Before I conclude, I want to remind you all that Thursdays from 6 to 7, we have Dr. Bell, with Your Feeling Nourished. She comes on every Thursday. On Wednesday at 6 p.m., we have Francesca, who comes on with her podcast, Cry No More. Right after me on Thursdays, you have Brother Bill Graves with the Real American, It's Time to Wake Up. And then after Bill Graves, you have Baba Joe with Health and Healing. On Friday mornings at 7 a.m. to 7:30, we have the prayer call with Carol Lucille. And then, I'll leave with that. No, let me go down the list, right? Then at 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., we have Marcus on Friday, Cooler Talk Extra Hype Connection. From 8 to 10, we have Edward on Friday, Thine Will Be Done. Saturday morning, we have the prayer call with Carol Lucille. Saturday afternoon, 12 p.m. to 1 p.m., we have the Actualizer with Your Highness. She comes on every first and third Saturday. At Saturdays at 6 p.m., we have Brother Forrest Nance with his podcast, which is the name of the podcast, The Grown Folk Talk and Express Yourself. From 8 p.m. to 9 p.m., we have Lady L from Long Island, and she comes on every first and third Saturday. And then from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m., we have the Sultan of Morocco with Brother Watley Bey. I just ran down the list from Wednesday to Saturday. Also note that we have coming up, I think it's our 4th annual Dis-Ease Prevention Health Convention, a Holistic Soul Expo. Come out August the 8th, which is a Saturday, from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. We're going to have a plethora of speakers. We have Leslie Wright. She's driving in from Atlanta. I thought she was catching the plane, but she said it's a 13-hour drive, and she likes to drive, so she's driving up. Brother Forrest already booked her hotel room, so she's set for that weekend. And those of you who are nearby, come on out and enjoy the group and get to meet us. Until next time, I will see you all, and thank you for joining.
Thank you.
All right.